NFL segment. Yeah, it's just so great to see Jesse again. Yeah, big trade news. I think that's obviously where we're gonna start this thing. Arun, you're always so good with the facts and figures. Can you break down this trade for people who may not have gotten the breaking news today, and then the three of us can chat about it a little bit.
Yeah, the Wizards, they traded Rui Hachimura, who just put up a 30-point game against the Orlando Magic, for Kendrick Nunn, and 3 second rounders. And one of those second rounders is owned by Chicago Bulls, which is more valuable, which is in this year's draft, which could be like the number 38 pick. And Rui Hachimura is a free agent, and the Wizards couldn't probably afford to keep both Kuzma and Hachimura. Maybe they won't even be able to keep Kuzma at the end of the day. So if they weren't going to keep Hachimura, it probably made sense for them to trade him. And the Lakers, they're trying to improve their roster. They're actually taking on more salary. They're a big market. Their window is limited with LeBron James already 38 years old. And they acquired another former Wizard. They already have Russell Westbrook, Troy Brown Jr., Thomas Bryant, and Rui played on that playoff team with Russell Westbrook a couple of seasons ago. I don't really think this is a bad trade necessarily for the Wizards, especially because they weren't going to keep Rui, and the last couple of trades with the Lakers have been pretty favorable, but that the draft pick of Rui is not looking great right now. He's taken number 9 3 years ago, but it's a sunk cost, and it's better to move on than lose him for nothing, especially since the Wizards are not, they right now have the 6th worst record in the NBA, and they and they're probably more concerned about keeping Kuzma at this point, although maybe he'll be traded. We'll see.
Yeah, Chip, what are some of your thoughts on this trade?
We got scammed. I'm sorry. We got scammed. We got absolutely scammed. We get a second rounder for this upcoming draft in this year, which, okay, yeah, the Bulls own it. Cool. But according to Woj, who got this from sources that knew about this trade before it became official, is that we're getting a what quote unquote least favorable second round pick in 2028 between both the Lakers and the Wizards, which Orlando's supposed to get the most favorable, the better favorable second rounder in that year between the two teams, that according to Real GM. And then we're getting the Lakers' own second round selection in 2029. So I feel like we got scammed on this one, but Rui kind of hinted that he was ready to go after he put up 30 points recently, that he was ready to go. He said he wanted to go to a place that was going to treat him like a basketball player. He had kind of fallen out after Kuzma had gotten here. He was a starter on the front court. Then he missed the year because of the ACL injury. He came back. He's been mostly a bench player for the last season and a half. So he kind of fell out of favor a little bit. And that kind of messed with his confidence a little bit, that he went from being the starter and being a focal point of that front court to being a backup, because you have a Kyle Kuzma there, you have a Kristaps Porzingis in that front court. So now he goes to the Lakers, and clearly the Lakers really wanted him to be a part of that front court with LeBron and with AD getting ready to come back. General Manager Rob Pelinka, in a statement announcing the trade, mentioned that he said, quote, adding both size and depth to the wing position has been a goal, and the chance to accomplish that by acquiring a player with Rui's two-way skills and upside was an opportunity that doesn't present itself often. So clearly getting Hachimura was a big W for the Lakers and a bit of an L for the Wizards, because of the fact that they got the picks and they got Nunn, who has only been averaging 6 points and 1 rebound, almost 7 points and 1 rebound per game in 39 games with the Lakers, even though he's gone up in the last 9 games, averaging 11 points and 2 rebounds and an assist per game. And he had a 23-point game against the Hawks 2 weeks ago. It'll be interesting to see how this trade plays out, who wins, but I just feel like the Wizards kind of got scammed on this one, honestly.
I kind of tend to agree with you on this, except for we just desperately need better guard play. And obviously our draft pick has been a bust, right? And we definitely needed somebody. And I don't know, or do you think it's a bust, or do you? I mean, obviously we don't know yet, but what are your thoughts on that
I
part of it?
think none is pretty much like not really the reason they're making this trade because he's a point guard, and unless they're planning to play him in the backcourt, I guess this opens up more minutes for Kispert in the backcourt. But Wright and Morris have been pretty good at like adequate at the point guard position, and Jordan Goodwin, I think he's probably going to see minutes before Nunn does. I think this is just simply about getting picks, and maybe they'll try to move Nunn at the deadline, try to flip some picks and do something with that, just with his expiring salary. But I just don't think Rui. I guess Rui has a lot of potential. I just don't think he's been that good. He has the worst plus minus on the team. Just this last week, a Wizards coach anonymously said that Rui was the worst defender that he's ever coached. He said worse than Nick Young as far as the team concept. And he's already been in the league 4 years, so I don't know if that's going to get better. But maybe under LeBron and or being coached by Darvin Ham will be better. But I don't think Wes Unseld Jr. is like a terrible head coach. But I guess we'll find out if Rui puts it together. Maybe he just couldn't get it through to Rui. But right now, I don't know like how many more minutes are going to open up for Rui. He couldn't play that well behind Porzingis and Gafford. I don't know like how many minutes he'll get behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And Thomas Bryant actually had a 30-point game. He was signed for the minimum by the Lakers. I just think at the end of the day, they're probably going to draft Rui's replacement, and this season's probably a lost cause. And the Lakers, I don't know. Like I guess they might make the playoffs, but I don't really think they're in like championship contention after this trade. And they probably could sign Rui as a free agent.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. All right, let's see. I want to try something real quickly, see if I can get. We haven't done this in a while, but see if I can share the screen with this. Make a co-host. Yes, and then I click here. So I'm gonna try to project the Wizards games up on the scoreboard. So we're gonna try it now and see if it works. But here we go. Share screen. All right. Escape button. Back to Zoom. Make you guys a little bit better. And there we go. All right, let's go back to talk about some of the games from this week. Last week we did a post-game show, even though it was many hours removed from the Warriors game. So we can skip that one. We can talk about this game, which is against the New York Knicks. And so the scoring started off well for the Wizards. They outscored them 35. Let me just see if I can make this a little bit better. 35-22, and then the Knicks came back a little bit in the second quarter, outscored them 26-21. The Wizards outscored them by 2 in the third, and by 1 in the fourth. But by that point, they had got a 116-105 victory. Kyle Kuzma led the scoring for the Wizards with 27 points. Porzingis had 22. Bradley Beal had 18. So all three of them played pretty well. Overall, I thought that they just played well as a team, and good team defense for the most part. Holding the Knicks to 41% from field goal percentage. But I'll go to Champ first. What are some of your thoughts on this game?
So it was clear that, Bill was on a minutes restriction, and this was his first game back after missing multiple games due to a hamstring injury. And so he only played 29 minutes, but still managed to get 18 points in those 29 minutes. So clearly he was back almost to full form here. But the team got carried by the other members of the big three here. Kuz with 27 with a double-double, KP with a double-double, Monte Morris also had double figures as well. And Denny had 14 off the bench. Wright had 11 off the bench. So clearly they got there a lot of production on the offensive side of the board. And then, of course, on the defensive side, they were able to play well, and they were able to turn things around from when the Knicks came into our house and kind of embarrassed us. We went to their house and decided we're going to embarrass them. They shot pretty well from on the field. They shot a lot better from three than the Knicks did. 7-26 for the Knicks. That's terrible. You're not going to win a lot of games if you can't make double-digit threes, and that's basically the long and the short of it. And then shooting well from the free throw line, everything sort of worked well and worked out for the Wizards, leading to them being able to get that victory, to come off of that loss to the Golden State Warriors on Monday and get this victory and really start to push forward after this one.
Yeah, Arun, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, just pretty much everyone on the Wizards like had a good game except for Rui and Taj Gibson. Beal coming off his injury, he took only 11 shots, but he had 18 points, which was pretty efficient. Kuzma had a lot of highlight threes, got to the rim. Porzingis returned back to New York, I believe, for the first time, and in a Wizards uniform, and he got a lot of boos when he fouled out of the game, but he had an efficient stat line with 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists. So you'll take that. And the Wizards kind of controlled this game, even though Brunson was great. He had 32 points. Barrett was pretty efficient, but Randall kind of shot them out of the game. And Mitchell Robinson, once he left the game with an injury, the Wizards were able to get to the rim and dominate in the paint. They even didn't really have to play Gafford that many minutes, and he was kind of efficient, although he had a couple of turnovers. The Wizards kind of controlled this game. They didn't give up the big lead in the fourth quarter, and they walked away with the win.
Yep. All right. And then the next game was the really exciting one against the Magic. So we went into this game, I believe, with a 6-game win streak over the Magic, and we were able to outscore them 37-26 in the first quarter, able to score 33 more in the second, outscored them by 2 on that one. The Magic came back and had a pretty good third. They outscored them by 4, 34-30. But then the Wizards just turned it on in the fourth, outscored them 38-27. So no quarter under 30 points. Ended up with 138 points to 118. Just overall, just a really great game by Kuzma, but also by Rui Hachimura, who's no longer on our team. But maybe that helped us with the trade value. I don't know, but just an overall really great win. I'm happy we won 7 in a row over the Magic. I know the Magic aren't very good, but you kind of have to have a couple of these games every once in a while to, Champ, what are some of your thoughts?
I think one of the main takeaways from this game is that the Wizards never trailed in this game. They had full control of this game from start to finish, and that is the way you play these type of games, especially against a team who you have beaten the last 6 times prior to this. Is you never trail. The unfortunate thing is you did lose Kristaps Porzingis in this game to a left ankle sprain. He's going to be out for at least a week, maybe more. He'll be reevaluated next week, but you'll not have him for at least a couple of games. He did score 17 before exiting the game with that ankle injury. Beal did come in and score 17 and only his second game back after missing several with a hamstring injury. But I think the big news was Rui Hachimura in his final game as a Wizard, scoring a career high 30 points to give this team this big victory over the Orlando Magic. And I mean, just all around a near perfect performance for this Wizards team, and they needed it to extend their winning streak to 2 games after a big victory over the Knicks, then turning around and adding to their win streak over the Magic by having a dominant performance on all sides of the ball with so many players in double figures and just absolutely dominating the Magic at home.
Yeah. So Arun, we kind of needed this win going into the next couple of games. What were some of your thoughts about getting it done?
Yeah, pretty much everyone on the Wizards played well in this one. They shot 53% from 3-point range, and when this team's knocking down threes, they're already dominating in the paint. Porzingis only shot 3 of 10, but he got to the free throw line 10 times, and he had 17 points before, as Ken mentioned, he left with an injury, which was unfortunate. It's right now listed that he's week to week. So we'll see how the team adjusts. And then Rui went off in the third quarter, and I believe he didn't have a point through his first 4 shots, but then he somehow had like 30 points with like 8 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. He had 30 points earlier this season. He wasn't able to get his career high. And then it was interesting the comments he made after the game that he didn't know if he wanted to be here, and he didn't know whether or not he wanted to be in the Wizards uniform. So maybe that, even though he's already in trade talks, maybe that's what finally got the deal done, that the Wizards were willing to move on from him. But Kuzma played well. I thought he was the player of the game with 25 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists to Rui. You could also argue that he was the player of the game in his final appearance in the Wizards uniform. And it'll be interesting to see how Beal and Kuzma play without Porzingis and going forward, because they're 3-2 without him.
Yeah, I mean, at least he went out on a positive note as a player. I've always liked Rui Hachimura, but I also felt like he's a player that's never reached his full potential. I see that he did in this game, but it's just consistency. Like, I just don't feel like I see it enough out of him, and it gave him a lot of opportunities. It wasn't like he hasn't had his opportunities here, and I think that there's been just a lot of inconsistency in his play. But I would not be shocked if there's a resurgence in LA. I mean, this happens a lot to the Wizards and the Bullets before them, that players have moved on and then found their bright spot right after leaving us. So it would not shock me if that happened, for sure. And in that regard, I do think we got fleeced a little bit. Let's talk about the upcoming schedule here. We've got the Mavericks tomorrow at 8:30. And it turns around and have to play the Rockets right after that at 8 o'clock. On Saturday, there's an 8 p.m. game against the Pelicans. And then next Monday, there's a live game, the Wizards versus the Spurs. So a lot of games this week in a relatively short period of time, a lot of them difficult. It's a West Coast swing. Next week, obviously, by the time we get to Wizards talk, it'll probably be either a post game or in the fourth quarter conversation. So that'll definitely be interesting to have next week. But we'll start off with Champ. Your thoughts? Well, why don't we break it down? We'll do the first two, the Texas games, and then we'll break down the last two games. Your thoughts on playing the Texas two-step, if you will, at 8:30 and 8 o'clock on consecutive days against a really tough Mavericks team.
Right. So, I mean, this is a very, very interesting schedule for the Wizards, facing the Mavericks, who currently sit 5th in the Western Conference right now. They're playing very tough. And then you got to turn around and then play Houston, who is pretty much at the bottom of the Western Conference. So it would be huge for the Wizards to get a big victory over the Mavericks and then turn around and just trounce Houston. But I just don't see that happening. Honestly, I don't see that happening, because you're coming off a back-to-back. It's very tough. It's not like you're traveling very far. You're going from Dallas to Houston. That's not much of a far trip, but it's a back-to-back. So your legs are not going to be there. It's going to be basically a test of will, but for this team to be able to go from facing a very tough team like the Mavericks and then having to go with little energy and face a very, very subpar, not even subpar, a very bad Houston Rockets team and get up for such a game. So there's got to be that sense of, hey, we're going up against a very tough Mavericks team. We got to play them tough, but then we have to go into our reserves and face this Rockets team and really beat them down. So I'm calling this a split here. I think they lose to the Mavericks, but then they come into Houston pissed off and they stomp Houston.
Yeah, I was just looking at the upcoming schedule for the Rockets, and it does seem that they've got the advantage in the fact that they played today and they'll have a day off between them. But it's tough because it's not even a full 24 hours. The second game is at 8 o'clock. So if like the Mavericks game, if it goes to like overtime, let's say, or it goes late, like that's going to be really rough for them. But Arun, what are your thoughts on playing these two games back to back?
Yeah, the Dallas game is very, I don't know, it's tough to say, because Dallas depends on which team shows up, because Dallas is capable of beating any team in the NBA, but earlier this season they lost to the Wizards without Porzingis and without Beal. And this one, the Wizards will have Beal, so I think Dallas is the better team on paper, but effort will be a key for them. And the Wizards are also seem super motivated whenever they play the Mavericks, because like think they really don't like Spencer Dinwiddie, and they get up and play against the Mavericks. But if Luka gets going and the officials give him a lot of calls, it'll be tough to win that game. As for the back-to-back, the Wizards are 5-3 this season on the second night with no rest, and Houston is pretty awful. Like, I don't know what's going on there. None of their young players play defense. Sengun is a very good, like, Jokic type of big man, great passing big guy, but I think the Wizards will probably beat Houston.
So I do see that they won today, which I guess was a home and home, which they had just lost to the Timberwolves, before. So that's interesting. And they had lost their two previous games. So yeah, it's definitely going to be just a tough one just for the scheduling. Talk about scheduling losses in our hockey segment. It's just these back-to-backs are brutal in basketball, but hopefully they do get the win, as Champ said, in the first one, and they can able to get that momentum going into the second one. I definitely think that it behooved the Wizards to win in regulation and not have it drawn out too far in that Mavericks game, because they're going to have to find some way to conserve a little bit of energy there. The next game is not for a couple of days. It's not until Saturday. It's an 8:00 game against the Pelicans, and then they'll have a day off, and then they'll go back to Texas with the Spurs. Well, I'll just break them down separately at this point. But Champ, what are your thoughts on the Pelicans game on Saturday?
This schedule is so weird because they're playing 4 games in 7 days, and 2 of the 4 teams they're playing are in the top 5 in the West, with the Mavericks and then the Pelicans, who are 4th in the West, whereas the other 2 games, the Rockets and the Spurs, which we'll talk about in a bit, they're towards the bottom of the West. So you would think, looking at that on paper, this is a 2-2 thing. The Pelicans are going to be very, very tough. And it's in New Orleans on this road trip. CJ McCollum has been playing absolutely well this season, averaging 21 points, almost 5 rebounds, and almost 6 assists per game. So he is a constant when it comes to this Pelicans team. They're going to have to really play well. You're not going to have Porzingis most likely because he's dealing with the left ankle injury. You now don't have Rui, so you got to wonder if none will be factored into this team and what this team has in terms of rotation with the guards and how he'll be effective. On the other side, the Pelicans won't have Zion Williamson. He's dealing with a hamstring injury and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this game, but it's not going to be easy. The Pelicans are just way too tough of a team to deal with, and you're on the road, you at least have a 2 days off before you face them after back-to-back, but that still could be a very, very daunting task for this Wizards team to face and beat this team. I call a loss for this one.
Yeah, Arun, do you see it the same way?
Yeah, the Pelicans, they already blew out the Wizards by 20 points earlier in the season without Zion. Maybe the Wizards get up, but Valanciunas is like a load for them to handle. And the Spurs, I'm looking at StatMuse, and they haven't won at San Antonio since 1999. I think like the Juwan Howard era. So even though the Spurs are pretty bad, for them, they're still kind of competitive. So it'll be kind of a test to see how much the culture's changed around Washington, but it might be an 0-2 part of the road trip.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's just get into this game that'll be next Monday that we'll be talking about live during the show, having the second half and giving scoring updates and things like that. The Spurs always seem to give the Wizards fits. I know that they're not the same Spurs team that they once were, but I never feel confident going into San Antonio. What are your thoughts, Champ?
Yeah. The Spurs record is 14-32 as we are speaking right now, but it seems like anytime the Wizards go into San Antonio, regardless of if the Spurs are towards the top of the conference or towards the bottom of the conference, they can never beat them in San Antonio. And that's what scares me about this one. The Spurs are towards the bottom of the Western Conference. They only average 112, close to 113 13 points per game, but yet somehow the Wizards might go into this game with the losing streak that they have in San Antonio and find a way to still lose this game. But I'm feeling somewhat, I have some optimism that they may finally break the curse and they win in San Antonio. I'm calling it now. I think they finally break the curse. They'll have Beal back fully healthy. They'll have Kuzma. They may or may not have Porzingis. We'll see how his recovery goes for that ankle injury. I think they finally break the curse this Monday. They break the curse. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah. I would love that. Arun, what are your thoughts on this Monday game?
Yeah, at least the Spurs traded away Dejounte Murray, who roasted them last time. I don't know. I guess I don't foresee Porzingis being back. If he's back, I think Washington wins, but without him, and also I don't really think they'll win on the road unless Denny somehow has a really good game like he did against the Knicks. But I think it might be a little bit too much because even the Spurs are kind of playing competitive games, and they still have Greg Popovich. As long as they have him, they have a chance against the Wizards at home. And I don't think this Washington team is going to be the team that breaks the streak, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah. All right. I think that we've broken down this week enough. Next week, we'll definitely have a lot to talk about with those 3 games that have already happened, as well as the game that's happening live. Yeah, I think that should wrap up our Wizards roundtable. I'll give you guys any final thoughts you have on the overall week, and then I'll let you guys give your final send off as well. So, Arun, any final takeaway for the Wizards as they are currently constructed and going into this week?
Yeah, right now they have the 6th best chance at the number 1 pick. So if they're not going to make the playoffs, don't try to win too hard, and maybe they should try to trade Kuzma. He's going to demand like $30 million a year because they can't keep overpaying players. Like they overpaid Beal probably a little bit, and that's probably why they weren't able to keep Rui. So we'll see what happens with the trade deadline in a couple weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And Champ, any final thoughts on what do you see as should we be a seller? Should we be a buyer? Should we just stand pat? What are your thoughts?
I think you stand pat. I mean, if Beal can stay healthy and you can get Kristaps Porzingis back healthy, I think your big 3 is definitely going to be the catalyst to be able to push you forward. Honestly, I just don't see anything out there that would really help or hurt the Wizards in terms of help them once they get past the All-Star break. I think you're fine where you are. Hopefully none can add to this team when he does get here. But right now, I don't think you should be a buyer or a seller. I think you should stand pat and just work with what you have. But I'm going to once again reiterate, the Wizards have a 22-game losing streak to the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio. It ends Monday. You heard it here first.
I would love that. Love that for us to be able to call that live for sure. But Arun, I'm going to let you go. Hopefully we get to see you next week to talk maybe some championship NFL action and some live Wizards. But either way, we love having you on any week that we get you, and let people know if there's anything you want to shout out this week before you go.
Not much to shout out, but thanks for having me on, and look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, sounds good. All right, Champ, I'm going to switch up our graphics and put up the No Spots podcast graphic and let people know what's happening in the world. I know that there's a big matchup right now that I'm so thankful that you're on this show, and I know that there's Raw at 30 is happening right now in Philadelphia. I know many people that actually went up for that, but let people know about all the big wrestling news and what's coming up on your shows this week.
Well, I actually just watched it somewhat live, and it actually just ended about 20 minutes ago, and it was a really good show. So myself and Sif will be recapping that along with everything else that happened this week up until Thursday, because the podcast will be streaming live on Friday, because on Saturday we will be live reacting to the Royal Rumble. It will be myself, it will be Sif, it will be Sage, who is our New Japan analyst and contributor, as well as a special guest guest that will be joining us. It will be a 4-man crew that will be live reacting to the Royal Rumble this Saturday night on Twitch. And not only are we going to be talking about that and previewing that on the podcast, but we will also have whatever news happened as well. As you know, if many people did not hear about it last week, it was a tragic passing of the 13-time Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion Jay Briscoe, who passed away in a tragic 2-car accident last week in his hometown of Delaware. He was only 38 years old. We had a tribute to him on the last podcast. If you want to go back and listen to that, hit the podcast partners button on SportsOTHP.com. It was a very touching tribute to him, only 38. And a very, very sad situation. But this week, we will be looking forward to what we have ahead, including the Royal Rumble. So make sure you check that out. And coming up in March, we will be restarting our New Japan podcast series when the New Japan Cup gets ready to kick off on March the 5th. We will be kicking that off on March the 2nd. So make sure you keep an eye on that. Again, you can check us out, twitch.tv/TrueNoSpotsPod, and of course, partners button on SportsOTHP.com.
Yep, and I also did a little link there as well on in Twitch chat if people just want to get to the audio podcast from Twitch chat. So I appreciate Champ as always for being a part of this, and it'll be fun to recap the 2 championship games next week, as well as some of this Wizards stuff, plus the live Wizards game. So we'll have a lot to break down. I'm excited for episode 297, which will be next week. It's crazy. We're on our way to episode 300, kind of in the final countdown there. It'll be fun to have a live game the Wizards wanted to talk about again. I kind of like this week that we could just chat with everybody and not have a live game to distract us. But it'll be fun to have the Wizards game back next week as well. But some great championship NFL action coming for sure. But I hope that everyone does check out the No Spots podcast, or they click the Team Sports or THP link, and then they get all of Champ's links there as well for the podcast and Instagram and Facebook and all of the things. So but Champ, it's been so much fun. I can't believe we're so close to 300. We'll be there pretty shortly, and it's been a fun show. I think I'm going to end the audio podcast on the Facebook side with that for DC Sports Without the Politics, Sports on the Hill podcast.
Rui, arigato, sayonara.
Yes. All right, and then I'm going to stop the recording.
Recording stopped.
But Champ, do you have anybody on that you want to raid, or
let me see what we got going on here. No. See if we got anybody on your end, because I'm probably
I think I'm gonna probably raid into Davey is eating a sandwich.
Davey, yay!
He's been a friend of the show, and I know that he loves a lot of these things that we've been talking about. And he actually had Jesse, the Leon Lounge, on his show last week. So if you missed he did it actually on a special edition on Thursday. So if you missed that episode, it was a great show with Jesse, and I was in chat talking football with them, kind of previewing the upcoming games of the week, and I even said to Jesse there, hey, if you win, you got to come on our show. So I'm hoping that they're able to beat the Eagles next week, and we can have Jesse back. That was super fun to have him on as part of our roundtable. And maybe even Anna, I know she's not going to be home, but maybe even zoom in from her phone. Even if she doesn't do the cap segment with us, it'd be great for her to celebrate, hopefully. So no jinxes here. I just really am going to be a big 49ers fan this week, as I was last week. And I hope that everyone has a great weekend ahead. I will be in Texas. I'll be back late Sunday night, so I will be still doing a show next Monday.
Robbie, I wish I could travel as much as you do. Like, dude, you be traveling everywhere, and I just be sitting in this apartment. Like, holy crap!
It's true. I'm going to a wedding of Liz's cousin in Austin, but it should be fun. I am lucky that I get to do that, and it'll be a fun weekend. But yeah, I hope that everyone else has a really great week and weekend, and we'll be definitely back next week where we'll recap the hockey, the football, and the live Wizards game. Davey's eating a sandwich. We're going to be rating, and you can get our sub raid as well. Yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed Davey as much as I do. And yeah, when the shout outs, I'll block it. So I can't see it. There we go. Okay. I will raid now. All right. Have a great one, everyone.